Hello and welcome to the Nursing and the Arts podcast. I'm your host, Susan J. Faris, MSN RN, SJF Communications. Here we will listen to stories from nurses that use the creative arts in their practice or in their personal lives. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Nursing and the Arts podcast. This is episode 7. We're getting there. And I have Dr. Nurse podcaster and more, Success NP podcast and more, Dr. Sandra Pagenta here with us today. Welcome, Sandra. Dr. Sandra.
Hi. Thank you, Susan. Thanks for having me on the podcast today.
I'm so excited to see you again. I was on Sandra's podcast in 2022, I believe in April, and I cannot believe how time has flown. And we're still here, we're still kicking, and we're still being creative nurses overall. So why don't you, I know you've probably done this on a lot of podcasts by now, but give me a quick rundown of when you started as a nurse and when you transitioned into this creative art life of yours, and tell me a little bit about what you're doing now and your clinical background, your NP background, et cetera, your DNP, all that.
Yeah. So started nursing in 2008 when I finished my bachelor's degree. Started creatively using my degrees with the birth of my son. He was born in 2019, and that was a kind of a pivotal turning point for me. I am a doctorally prepared nurse practitioner. I practice in urology part-time. I have a part-time position, and I love what I do clinically. It's just so interesting. I have a really good group of nurse practitioners that I work with, which is something that's new for my job, is realizing that it's actually really great to work with another set of NPs that you love, that make your job easy. And so, that's kind of what's new on the work front. But on the creative front, I did operate the Dr. Nurse podcast for, I think it was almost 2.5 years. And then decided to kind of creatively shift the podcast to align with my other brand that I've been working on. I developed, one of the things I talk about on the podcast is finding a hole, finding something that needs to be filled and then filling it. And so what I found was that nurse practitioners did not have clinical resources prior to going into clinicals. So there's the didactic teaching, which is the stuff you learn in the classroom. And then there's the practical stuff, the stuff that you learn in clinicals. And so there wasn't a great resource for NPs. And my girlfriend and I, Jackie King, she's a nurse practitioner in women's health. She and I decided to team up together and to create that resource.
There you go. You close the gap.
We closed the gap. So with the incredible company NP Hub, we created a resource, and then we took that resource and we improved it. We added stuff. We just kind of kept creating around it. And then that is a source of passive income for us right now, which is amazing and pretty cool.
Now, what is NP Hub? Who runs that?
So NP Hub is run by my friend Krish. He is Krish Chopra. He is a sweet friend of mine. He is the CEO of that company. Okay. And we actually just chatted. I had a conversation with him, kind of organically shared what we were creating, and he loved the idea. He absolutely loved it. And so then we took that idea and we've run with it, and we've just kept going. Again, you just need one. I tell everybody.
So these are right. So these are workbooks and graphically. I mean, who does all the graphics?
I do.
Colors and all.
Yeah.
So you're an artist as well.
Yes.
So you're a digital artist. You make digital downloads that people that are NPs either in school or an aspiring one or someone that might be rusty to gravitate and learn again or learn for the first time clinical skills, just anything about NP life to give you confidence, I suppose, to get out there. You know what?
Susan, do you want to come work for us? That sounds like our tagline.
I was an adult nurse practitioner, clinical nurse specialist. However, I went a different track. I went an admin and entrepreneurial track from the very beginning, from my master's. But I could have used those resources. I'm telling you, it would have given me much more confidence in, when you get out of school, you're kind of, you're naive a little bit. How does it really work? How do you do your payments? What if I miss something when I'm diagnosing? So that resource did fill a gap for many people, I am sure. And
Yeah.
you should just celebrate yourself. You think up stuff, whether it's postpartum time or whatever, and you go with it. You have the verve to be able to just ride with it, with whatever happens. And you know what? You've been successful, and Success NPs is a fantastic name for your brand. One of these days, I'll meet your partner.
Yeah.
What is her name again?
Jackie King is
Jackie
the
King.
partner for the podcast. Yeah, she does
Great.
the podcast a little bit with me, and then she also works with the clinical booklet side. Yep.
Great. So
Yeah.
there's two avenues basically, the media side and then what you're doing with the workbooks.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. So when you were a registered nurse way back when, what areas did you work in before you became an NP and a DNP?
Yeah. So when I was first a nurse, I was an oncology nurse, and I did that. And I actually share that journey a little bit on the podcast. That I think I picked the wrong specialty. But I picked
Ooh.
oncology. I did. I picked oncology to begin with. It was a very well-known floor, a lot of senior nurses. And
Mm,
so that's the culture is what I was kind of buying into. I really
mhm.
wasn't listening to like, what is it that I'm kind of geared for? But based on my personality, I just don't think that was the right choice for me. But I chose that one, did that for a couple years, went into neurosurgery while I was finishing up my master's degree. I did neurosurgery for a year and a half, maybe, and then transitioned into a GI nurse practitioner role. And then when I was in that role, I experienced a very traumatic, NP career pivotal moment in my life where I was
Mm,
fired. I was fired from my job. A lot of people don't like to talk about the time they were fired, but actually it was the best moment of my life. I mean, that I
a
love the book Who
blessing.
Moved My Cheese, but that book talks a lot about things that happen to you and how you're sitting there eating the nasty cheese and eventually you just think that's good cheese and it's actually really
Wow.
moldy. And so when somebody moves your cheese and you have to go find new cheese, you start to realize, oh my gosh, I was eating the worst food. And so, yeah, so it ended up being a total blessing in disguise. I ended up getting another job, and that job has just been, it's been a challenge, but it's been super good for my
And
career.
is
So,
that the urology
yes,
NP? And
yes,
that's with it must be a large practice if you have other NPs with you.
yes, I
Yeah,
do.
you see
Yeah,
a lot of
it's a,
big volume
yep,
of patients and all.
a lot. Yeah, we're
So
busy.
what got you interested in urology? So it's usually male patients. Is it something that, as a mom going through your family situation,
Yeah.
or,
What
what
was it?
was it? What was the
Yeah.
spark with urology? Because that's not very popular
Yeah. No,
for
it's
folks to
definitely
work
not.
in.
It's not a popular NP role. So one of the things that happened when I was fired is I remember not really begging, but like asking my boss, like, what could I do? Like, could I do procedures? Because that's really why I got fired. There was no spot for me, according to my boss. And so I was like, okay, well, what can I do to generate income? So as the nurse, you are calculated into the cost of the room. As an NP, you're an income generating provider. So if you're not generating your income,
Hmm. Hmm.
then you're disposable. So what I
Hmm.
found was if I did procedures, if I had a procedure based job, I could really measure how much I was bringing into the practice.
Sure,
And
sure.
so this urology job was a chance to do procedures. They needed a procedure based provider. And given the experience that I had just
Ah.
had, I was very interested in what could I do with my hands? Maybe kind of going into this, starting this creative thing that instead of just using my mind and seeing patients in clinic, I wanted another dynamic to my career.
Hmm.
And so that this job offered that opportunity and I took it. I snagged it and I ran.
You took it, and it also increased this value in you about revenue generating in life. Because look at all that you've done. Besides being an NP, you're a mom, you're a wife, you've created a podcast. Now, is your the Doctor Nurse podcast, was that monetized when
It
you had
was for
that
a
one
period of time.
for a period of time? And
Yeah,
so now
yeah.
so how many episodes now of this new one, the NP, Success NPs, have you
Oh, yeah.
done?
So I've probably done about 10 since we launched it.
Okay.
And I did with the Doctor Nurse podcast, I had over 100 episodes. So I've done
Wow.
roughly, probably give or take, I've probably got 125 episodes under my belt. I need more. I need to keep going. It's just hard, like you said, with all the other things that are going on, children and the mom game and the wife game. That's a whole nother load that I'm like, the podcasting is easy compared to that load.
But you know what? You have to. I mean, I loved when we spoke in 2022. You have such an amazing amount of drive, and a lot
Oh,
of people do not have drive. They don't even know how to discover their drive.
yeah.
I feel that same way. I'm much older than you. I'm in my
Not that much older.
blooming years here,
You look
and
beautiful.
I will not stop. Thank you. I will not stop being creative or learning. Those two things.
Mhm.
As far as the income, for me, it's not as much of a value as mastering a new skill or just something new or connecting with people a different way. So combined, we've got the best of both worlds here. You're the one thinking about what am I bringing in here? And I'm like, how do I motivate more? How do I teach more?
That's
Um,
good.
what other skill can I learn? Okay, I just learned the podcasting. Okay, I learned self-publishing. I'm teaching people how to publish. I'm a PR, public relations. So we're both nurses, we're both entrepreneurial. It's very exciting. Life is exciting with all these changes. We do value change because, you were thrust into that with that job that you were losing. And then you decided to take the bull by the horn and become the other type of nurse practitioner, which has led you to who you are today. You're so creative. My podcast, Nursing and the Arts, features people like you, photographers, bloggers, artists, poets. I'm a poet, nature photographer. It is such an interesting world that we're opening up, and I'm so happy to have you here. I mean, really.
Oh,
Um, you know, I'm trying to think if there's anything that we haven't talked about. Oh, tell me about your digital downloads. How do
oh,
they work? What's the
yeah.
deal
Well, I
here with
wanted to
Success
comment on what
MPs?
you said before, Susan, because I think when you approach life with the curiosity that you have and the desire to learn new things and increase what I would call your neuroplasticity, right? Like
Mm,
stepping into a space that's not familiar to you does really good things for your brain, for one. So it creates new pathways. It allows you to explore and see, am I good at this? Like, is this
right,
something that I enjoy? I
right.
love that you keep doing that. Even as you move through life and you journey through life, you continue to just put yourself in positions and say, is this something I could do? Hated that. Nope. Love this. You need those moments. And so
Yeah.
that curiosity is something that I want more nurses just to hear. It might not work for you, but if you never try it,
If you
you'll
never try, you'll
never
never
know.
know.
And
Absolutely.
so just give it
Yep.
a shot. I love
Yep.
that. So I
Yep.
want to comment on that before we move on from that. But the digital downloads and what we create at Success NPs, again, we say that we're Success NPs. We create clinical resources for nurse practitioners, right? So what we want to do is we want to help NPs that when they go to clinical and the didactic teaching is all up here, but the
Mm-hmm.
ability to walk into a room, not like as you were as a nurse, right? We could talk to people all day. We're nurses. But when
Yeah.
you're in that provider role, you've got a different set of goals and a different set of different set of goals that you're trying to get to. You need to figure out, what is the patient coming in here for? What am I treating them with? What am I treating them for? The differentials.
Right. It's
You have to go
totally
through,
different.
it's a
Yeah.
completely different space. So you've
Hmm.
got to take a history and physical. You've got to go through the review of systems. You have to do a physical exam. Then you've got to come up with a plan. I got to come up with a plan. Who's coming up with a plan? Me. And so it's a different role.
Like a
Whereas the
thought
nurse,
process and role.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
nurse was taking orders and you're the NP giving orders. And so, yeah,
Wow.
so we
Yeah.
create information. So we actually polled 400 nurse practitioners and we said, what do you want your nurse practitioner students to come in knowing? And they told us all the cheese. They said, we want them to know
Awesome.
this. We want them to know this. We want them. So by getting that information, we created a clinical guide based on that so that the students could take the guide, flip through the guide. They're printable. You can click through them on an app called GoodNotes, and you can take your
Oh,
Apple
good
Pen and
notes.
your iPad
Hmm.
and just go through them and take them into clinicals with you. What's really great is that you can write on top of them. Is there something that you want to remind yourself about? I
Like
want
to
to go home and
highlight.
look that
Yeah.
up. I want to go home and look
Hmm.
that up. I want to make sure I understand the clinical guidelines for this and for that, because the time you hit the door in your clinicals to the time you leave, it's a short window of time for you to
Yeah.
get prepared to be the nurse practitioner. And so we want to
Awesome.
maximize that time. And so by creating this guide, we are hoping to decrease the amount of time it takes you to become proficient before you leave your practice, because a nurse practitioner that is quickly or is better prepared faster as a nurse practitioner that they may want to hire, because she did such a great job that they're like, oh, so how much longer till you graduate? Oh, 3 more months. Here, take our card. Whenever you're done, give us a call back. And so
Awesome.
again, if we're able to just cut that time down from the time that you hit the door to the time that you get proficient at your job, if we can do that and we can create that opportunity for NPs, you're gonna have the world at your fingertips as far as
That's
jobs are concerned.
amazing. And you know what I was just thinking too? It's not just putting it all together, it's having confidence putting it all together. So when you're
Oh,
in this other role, you might be a little bit timid. You might not have that confidence demeanor that you had as a nurse because it's
it's good.
all new stuff. So you are giving nurse practitioner students or whoever with
Yes.
these guidelines another, in addition to your brain learning all this stuff, you're mastering a little bit more confidence because
Yes.
I'm going out there now. Now I feel better
Yeah.
because of success NPs.
Yeah,
Love it.
you're
Love
so
it.
good. Imposter syndrome is so big for nurse practitioners because
Absolutely.
sometimes nurse practitioners are the only NP at their practice. Kind of like what you said, you're like, oh, your practice must be big. There's multiple NPs. Some practices, you're the only one, right? And so
Yeah.
that time, again, the booklets have been used by new NPs too, which has been really
Hmm.
cool, getting that feedback that like this helped me as I started my job, you know? And so by us, you know, creating these guides and getting them into the hands of the NPs as they're starting jobs or going off to clinicals, they are finding that they are reducing the imposter syndrome, because when you set
Hmm.
it up so simply and you just say, hey, listen, this is what you need, and then you can have a springboard, you don't feel so alone. You don't feel so scared. And NPs
Right.
in school and then also in practice, they're so much more isolated than nurses. There are 4 million nurses and there are
Right.
only 385,000 NPs. There's not a ton of us, and we are kind of like lone islands. And so our
Right.
booklets are just that reach out from the distance of, hey,
Yeah.
listen, we're here. You're not alone. Here's something to help you. Yeah, build your confidence.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you. You're like the mamas of NPs. You're nurturing. No, really, think about this. You know,
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
it's oh my gosh. Oh
yeah.
my gosh. So I'm trying to think of what other, oh, what do you do for fun?
Oh
What do you do
gosh.
for fun?
So I'm a real glutton for punishment. I love to be uh to challenge myself. And so my new
Yeah.
challenge has been to homeschool my 5-year-old. So yeah,
Oh,
so I've decided that I'm going to be a homeschooling mama, which has been a unique challenge. And pretty much what I do for fun is just spend time with my family. I mean, that
you
really
love
is
your
just,
family. Yeah,
I
it's
love
evident.
my kids. I love my husband. I love being home with them. And so that's my newest endeavor, is figuring out what's it look like to teach my kid how to read, and what's it look like to talk about a book and dissect all the different parts of literature and imagery, and allow him to create a space where he can be creative at 5
At
and
5.
to
Yeah,
nurture that little seedling. And
exactly.
so it'll look different for him.
That's great.
What he's all about.
And the neat thing about homeschooling him, if you think about it, if you're part-time NP
Yeah.
and you're homeschooling, you also have that passive income from the digital downloads and things that you do that way. So your
Yeah.
creative side is thinking just all over the place, and you're crafting your perfect life.
Oh,
We
well,
really are. And there's so many people that are not like that in the world. I mean, you are a
yeah,
rarity to be
yeah,
able to, choose, hey, I don't need to work umpteen hours a week and not be there when my 5-year-old learns to read. I want to
yeah,
be there just like when they take their first steps and all those milestones. I think
yeah,
it's great that you're valuing your family and you're valuing income stream coming in,
mm,
whether it be working as an NP, DNP,
yeah,
or sitting back with these digital downloads that
and just
are
letting this
helping so
out.
many
Yeah,
people and nurturing them.
yeah. I
Full
will say
circle.
this though. I will say this, and you said something, the perfect life. I, I will say this. I had a number of health issues prior to the birth of my son, and I was not supposed to have children. And I actually don't really talk about this. So I want to share this with you because we've been friends for years now, and I
Oh,
feel very comfortable to chat with you. And so I think whenever you're faced with um to a certain degree, realizing that the life that you thought would always just be a given is not a given, is not something that's given to you. You change your perspective. And being on the podcast and speaking with all these nurse practitioners changed my mindset around what I was waiting to just naturally come to me, and what I realized that it could actually all be taken away from me. And as much as I look at the health issues that I have, and I still continue to struggle with, I began to realize that life is precious, life is short. There will only be one of me. There will only be one of you, nurse. You are the only nurse that will be you in this time, in this space. And so it's not going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but it will be what you make it, and it will be what you push yourself to see if you're good at.
Absolutely.
And life is too short to not give it a shot. And so I again, like I say, I challenge perfection because I do not believe it exists, but I do believe that the desire to reinvent yourself and to embrace change, to embrace, what you could be, is something that I'm always putting out in front of me and saying, hey, Sandra, go for that. Because again, life is short. You weren't guaranteed these things. So, yeah, go for it.
Not much else to say. It's also a sign of maturity. You're maturing before your own eyes. I mean, I'm in my late 60s. Now, I don't appear to be, because I try to keep young and I keep changing and all that stuff. But I'm hearing you say things that I said to myself right after graduate school. Graduate school changed me in that I wanted to be a leader, a role model, a mentor to others. Being mature enough to say, even with this health problem, I'm the only me that there is, and I need to make this work. You need to be self-evaluative, and many people are not that either, and see what the reality of the situation is, and try to keep yourself as healthy as possible, and learn about whatever you're going through, and master that if possible. And the fact that life sometimes is not that great. There's highs and lows, there's ebbs and flows, and for you to be able to meet those challenges and be positive and still help the world is just phenomenal. Stop making me cry, Sandra Pagenta. No, I mean, what a great discussion. I mean, we talked about a lot of things, but most of all, you remind me of me when I was your age.
Susan, what a compliment.
I'm not kidding.
Yikes.
And I'm not kidding. Like my master's program really did change me. And I was in my late 20s, early 30s, something like that when I got my master's. I worked for about 7 years. I was in the military. We changed jobs because the culture was changed every year to 3 years. They sent me for my master's as an adult nurse practitioner. However, I wanted another program that I got accepted to, nursing education and cardiovascular, at a different school. But because it was my home state, I did the NP, and I had a role conflict with NP work. And that is why I had the opportunity to change to a different track. But all the knowledge that I have from that master's program is still with me. All the BSN is still with me. We're always a nurse. We're always making rounds on life,
Love that. You should totally put that somewhere. Making rounds on life. Right. I love that.
And about my book, I republished it in 2021. And there's a phrase that I use all the time that goes with this podcast. When it's all said and done, there's no profession as diverse as the art and the science of being a nurse.
Yes,
so that's you, kiddo. The art and the science, you do it all. So I want to just thank you so much for being here. We will have all of your links in the show notes. If there's anything else you need to send me, send it away. And tell us, how can people contact you before we put that in the show notes?
Sure. So I'm anywhere. I'm everywhere. I'm Instagram. You can email me, Facebook me. Actually, I don't even think I've got Facebook anymore. I'm really more active on Instagram. Honestly, social media has become such its own beast that I actually have been trying to narrow it down because I just think it's too much.
It's too much. What's your username?
So we are the Success NPs on Instagram. So I'll give you my links and everything
All
that
the
you
links.
can put, and everyone
Okay.
can email me if you have questions, or you have a question about today or what I said, or things that, you're like, wait, how do I get involved? I'll talk to anybody. If anybody needs help, just reach
That's
out, and
great. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah,
Reach out to Mama
yeah.
NP DNP.
Mama MP, come on, let's go. Get
Mama
over here.
NP DNP. I'm going to do another rap here. I like rhyming, Oh
Love it.
boy. Well, thank you. I'm going to pause this recording, and thank
Love
you
it,
for
guys.
joining us with the Nursing in the Arts podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the Nursing and the Arts podcast. We loved having you here. And don't forget to sign up for our Facebook group, Nursing and the Arts, as well. And for information, you can email info@sjfcommunications.com.